So I've got a goofy idea that if things are turning into like a vlog setting, which they are on accident frequently turning out to be, that if maybe I should figure out a kind of a routine for this, like maybe talk a little bit first, do whatever funky little thing I'm doing, and then maybe revisit it at the end or not, just sign off, however it fucking works out, going with the flow, right? Trying to actually let myself be the way I normally am. Turns out I am kind of as goofy as I've always thought. Turns out, though, it's actually not as annoying as I've always heard because I actually wasn't hearing the people that were entertained. Because a lot of times those people didn't even talk to me. They just like were enjoying it from like, I guess, like the stands, like back of the audience. I don't know. Miss those people. Didn't realize they're like cheering me on. They're like, yeah, dude, like, tell it like it is. Cause I'm up here like, dude, you guys like, this is hella fucked up, right? But like, dude, I get annoyed by this too, right? Like, you hear me, right? Like, and I see people nodding, like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, I don't know why I've killed a fucking conversation on accident. Cause everyone else up front, and like in the forum, is comparing stories about like, oh yeah, my family used to do this like weird thing. I'm like, oh my god, me too. Yeah, my sister used to do this, and all of a sudden crickets or like explosions of like, oh my god, there you go again, perpetuating your own victimhood. I'm like, how does this keep happening? Because it doesn't even happen all the time. Did you know somebody else completely agreed with me last time I said this thing? Um, and actually, I said more that time, and they were like right there with me because it turns out that person understood that sibling dynamic. Because that person understood better that, oh, yeah, there's a public face, and then there's what happens behind closed doors, or what happens when there's only like a couple people around, or just two people. So it's literally your word against theirs, and it's the whole you said, she said, which is actually a really interesting movie and also demonstrated how everything was weighted towards the male end in the, was it late 80s? I don't remember the year. I watched it later because, child, whatever, or watched it twice. What the fuck ever. So, sorry about the language thing. It turns out I do, in fact, have Tourette's. So, a lot of the gestures and the oh sound effects, turns out that everyone's known I've always done, whether I'm conscious of it or not, is in fact completely relatable to Tourette's, which is like funny, not funny, but mostly funnier and stuff all the time now. Turns out the thing about being hyper observant and noticing things that other people don't, it's partially a sensory processing massive awareness. I don't even know what to call it anymore. Somebody left me a message that I don't even want to talk to you right now. That's great. Deal with that later. Actually, or will I? I don't even know if this will ever. Whatever. I'm not even sure I'm going to share this. I'm going to watch this later because I haven't quite gotten up to the live setting yet. Might totally actually no. I will try that at some point once I figure out what the fuck that feature is about. Again, with the I'm gonna have to figure out a disclaimer for that. Like, cannot frequently can't help it. Just there, I stopped myself from another f bomb, and I'm now getting blown up by that person, and I'm getting a little irritated. But it is funny. So what I had been trying to do was saying like I'll talk for a bit, but if I do like a task that normally takes me a set amount of time, like I can talk all I want during that time, and that's how I keep track of time. Except I just realized I stopped doing it, so that kind of doesn't work. So my thought was, since I like to do smokes, whether they're for the medicinal aspect of calming down or like making myself more in the body me, like in the present. So like right now this is a complete experiment to see how I flow in the present. So I actually don't really have much of a sense of anything at the moment. It's basically everything's like that's hitting me, I'm just going ahead and letting it out. So I feel actually incredibly neutral on the inside, and I realize I'm seeing a lot of movement out of the corner of my eye, like when I'm staying off here, because it's the peripheral awareness that I didn't realize I've always had, and that's why I would, excuse me, notice things and be like, "Oh my god, did you see that?" And everyone's like, "No, what are you talking about?" I'm like, shit, like, well, it's gone now. You're not gonna see it now. Like, how do I explain? It's unfucking believable. Like, if I said like, if I heard somebody else say, I'd be like, dude. But then I realized like, yeah, if somebody else said, I'd be like, wow, I can't believe you caught that. That's so cool. I'm like, why do I believe other people, and they don't believe me? And also like, why am I so like gullible around sarcasm when I'm insanely sarcastic, but I'm actually frequently not being sarcastic when people think I am. And if I'm being sarcastic, people think I'm being serious because I convey things too well. So it turns out by senior year in high school, reading One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I've already stopped doing what I was doing, back on track with that. Um, I was reading One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because I didn't even know it was a play. I only knew it was a movie that had like Jack Nicholson, and I swear there was like Danny DeVito and like this guy who's been in a bunch of movies that I've never like clocked his name. The guy with the curly hair that always looks like really shy and like kind of, I think he was like the stuttering, stammering one. And then there was like Chief, and there was like that crazy eyed guy who's like plays like the ghost, the poltergeist, or like whatever from the movie Ghost, with Patrick Swayze and all that. The guy in the subway. Um, God, character actors, right? There's like so cool, but like you never clock their names because when they're that good, you just notice their face, or you just like remember something else about them because people didn't used to clock character actors until they became big. Like for me, Steve Buscemi, he is one interesting looking dude, right? But he's got this range, no matter like, even though he looks essentially the same all the time, he's got this insane range of like all the stuff he can do. So I've always been like, dude, like that crazy eyed guy, he's got that funky teeth, because like I've always been self conscious about my teeth. So anyways, like this whole thing, right? But so I've been clocking him for years, and finally, all of a sudden, I finally clocked his name. It's like waiting for that song information to come on when you're listening to the radio, or at least back in the day. I don't know. Do they even do this anymore on radios? I don't listen to the radio. So when they would like announce the title, but like they would play all these songs without doing any interruptions. So when they give you the song title, they'd give you like basically 3 songs in a row, and I could never track which one they were talking about because it turns out, unless it's insanely obvious, and like the word base or the phrase is like beaten to your head over the song, I don't clock the titles. So I'm like, well, those words never even appeared in the song. How was I supposed to know that's what it's called? Or I'm like, isn't that song called like the do do do, like whatever? And which is funny when you get into like fucking Hanson with all like bop, like dude, literally the onomatopoeia is the song title. Dee-wah diddy diddy dum diddy do, like all that, or like she bops. That was funny to learn what bopping really meant. Love Cyndi Lauper, like seriously. Oh my god, right? Because the grown out mohawk, except right, fuck yeah. Oh my god, little me be fucking stoked right now. I guess I just need like a really funky, like cut up, like dyed tutu, and then like over my funky ass camo pants or something. Make it me, but like her, but like Pat Benatar, like Love is a Battlefield, cross up, mash up with like, I don't know. I guess really like, oh, do the like fucking silk or satin pajamas like TLC, like the crazy sexy cool, like bringing it back with my little braids, which I don't have yet, but that's what these pieces are gonna be. Cause like fucking feeling it, because it all ties together. Turns out I've been doing this my whole life, and I'm piecing things together, and I'm like, right, rediscovering my childhood joy and stuff. And I'm like, so I used to say, and I've stopped what I'm doing again. So I used to tell myself and some other people that I had this thing where it's like, right, well, when I feel really down on myself, I think about like, well, what would 5-year-old me think if like I saw me now? Like, like, hey, I didn't do so bad. Like, I'm a pretty nice person. Like I have some really cool friends, and like, hey, like I got this like neat thing. Either it's like, ooh, my hair looks really neat, or like, hey, look at that jacket I've got. Like, hey, look at this thing I made that like I put on my jacket. Like I made this. I'm like, right, because I was wanted to design my own tattoos, and now I'm like, right, I could just be a tattoo artist because it turns out I'm really good with needles. And I don't mean that in the way that people might think. I was in the a radiology program, um, 13 years ago. I should have graduated 13 years ago. Made it up to just before the semester before graduation, because of illnesses. But I had kept up with the coursework. I was just like basically like 2 semesters behind in clinical hours by then, because I wasn't telling anyone why I couldn't go in, because was told like, hey, don't tell people like you're sick, because like if you want to get a job, because basically they were telling us that like they'll discriminate against you, so don't let on that you have issues so that you can get a job, because that's totally healthy to be told that by graduating students that are coming back to like mentor you. um Anyways, whatever, it's like it's passed down gaslighting, that was the unintentional form, um, because they thought they were actually passing on good advice, which it is depending on what your goal is. And oh my God. Okay, sorry. I just realized I'm getting messages from somebody that I really, really like. Super stoked. She's like this amazing woman that she's actually in India. And I've actually like encountered her through Instagram through this really interesting connection from this person who liked one post. I was like, hey, like, who are you? Like, nobody knows who I am. Like, why are you doing this thing? So I checked him out, saw the description under his name was like something about like photons and like, was it Peruvian? Like, I don't know. It turns out like that's something like loves the sound of rain, maybe, or like water. I don't remember. I looked it up later. I was like, dude, right. And then I'm like, right. And that's probably why he got so upset about this other thing. Cause like, turns out it's like narcissism, but like not, but like turning things around on somebody on accident. Realizing that my habit is I expose somebody's shadow self and like show it to them, like, hey, look at this. Like, isn't this cool? And they're like, ah, you weren't supposed to see that. So it's almost like exposing somebody's like finding like a paired like used and like just set aside undies in somebody's house and be like, hey, look what I found. Or I'm like, dude, I found this person's journal. And like it turns out like I'm reading it to the person who wrote the fucking journal, and I'm like, dude, I found this like on this archaeological dig. Like, who knows who wrote this? And I'm like, shut up. Stop reading my shit out in public. Like, hey, no, this is fascinating. Like I'm like this too. But like different. Like, yeah, it's like the same but different. So people have always made fun of me for saying things like that, but it's like, no, that's actually why I know they're the same. It's because they're different. So I know things are different because they're like, yeah, dude, they're just the same. And they're like, actually, they're not just the same, because like, dude, they're totally different. And I was like, well, actually, they're kind of the same in this one area. So I've always noticed this. Yes, my preciouses. Fucking Smeagol. Like, look. Precious. Anyways, so yeah, still trying to work it with my hands here. Who knows how much this sound is transmitting, because I don't understand this tablet speaker. Whatever. Trying to work shit out. Apparently, I'm a fucking songwriter. Apparently, other people can tell I can rap or like flow, or like I got told I have MC skills because somebody read my poetry, which I don't always recognize as poetry, because I'm like, dude, this is wordplay, like straight up. I'm like fucking around. They're like, dude, this has got flow. I'm like, well, yeah, because that's part of why it sounds interesting. That's what the play is. I'm like, I didn't understand most of this. How my intuitive level, like, well, yeah, all things that you express, making with your hands or with your mouth, or like, finding things on the ground and pointing it out, the things you express to people. Turns out like I decided like months ago, because I lost track of time on like every fucking scale. I don't actually know how many months ago, just that it was not in the last couple. But right, like, so it might have even happened before my healing ceremony. I don't remember anymore. Because it kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't, depending on who's asking, right? Because everything's all relative, theory of relativity. Like, holy shit, I can't believe that stuff was like all fucking real. Those 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning wake up times where I'm like, dude, oh my God, like everything's going. Like, how am I supposed to stay in bed and like keep quiet for like this guy? Like, he should sleep. Like, yeah, he's like cranky all the fucking time. Like, it's not just that he's cranky. Like, holy fucking shit, he's dissociated and he's taking it out on me, because it's like he doesn't notice because he's dissociated. So like, how much can people be held responsible for when they're fucking dissociated? It's like, is it their fault that they look conscious to other people? Like, no, because it turns out I've done that to people too. Like, literally, traumatic brain injuries, face fucking smashed in because of a rugby accident in high school, and everybody's looking at me like, oh my God, like, that's so bad, because apparently nobody knew, because how are they supposed to know when I'm not talking and I can't talk, because I've only just found out I'm fucking autistic, like, kind of off the charts in a way, and nobody understood my insane vocabulary, why like I pull out words all the time, like, wow, nobody uses that anymore. Like, because I fucking read it. And who, oh, right, in the whole red site, website, whatever form, Reddit. God damn it, off track again. So, Tourette's outburst. And yeah, so it turns out all these things that I've like joked about and like cracked, like, well, like wisecracks, whatever. Made all these jokes about myself or being really sarcastic about other people, but knowing it included myself. Right, because those are the things that make it universal, at least as far as humans go, because I don't know the other species that, like, say, parrots, that parrot us, um, actually know, like, all of what we're saying. Obviously, they can mimic nearly perfectly, and plenty of times they look like they're using it correctly. But it's kind of like watching a small child, like watching my eldest niece when she was a toddler, correctly using "damn it" and the whole like, oh, damn it. I nearly lost my shit. I had to run out of the room because I've been babysitting toddlers since I was like 10 years old. And I realized how if you laugh in front of them and they see that you laughed because of something they did, they will repeat it because they want you to laugh again. And then, like, everyone knows they do it to death. Like, fine, breathe the joke into the ground. I'm like, well, yeah, because they were fucking happy that you laughed. They want that some more, especially if they don't get that a lot. They fucking crave that shit because everyone mostly knows, like, the joy of youth or, like, whatever, like, the spontaneity, right? Well, anybody can fucking have that. And apparently, that's what people like about me when I'm in the flow. Because when I'm in the flow is when, like, I literally forget myself. So I'm not self conscious. I'm not self doubting. I'm not self loathing. I'm not self hating or destroying or mutilating or suiciding. Because nobody realized I was doing that in my head, whether or not I wasn't doing it out in the world. I was actually watching myself, cut myself open, watching all the blood run out, feeling my body slow down because there was no blood left in it, or because there's like very little, and then realizing like actually that's probably a bad idea because like yeah, if I never restarted, like what about all the other cool things that were going on? Like I mean, yeah, everything else really hurts, but like but yeah, like so and so. And like, yeah, they're having a really hard time, and like, it doesn't seem like they have many people to talk to, and they finally started talking to me. So like, God, wouldn't that be really shitty for them to like think that maybe that was like one of the last things they ever said to me was like unloaded some shit, and they're like, oh God, was that the thing? I was like, yes and no. That was not the thing, but it added to it for sure. But like, it was actually basically everything else before you said that. So even if you're the last straw, everything that came before that contributed to it. It's not the last straw's fault. Like, why the fuck would it be the last straw's fault? Did the last straw know it was going to be the last? No, it fucking didn't. Did the person who placed it there know? Well, hopefully not. Hopefully it wasn't a fucking experiment to like, let's just find the one, let's find that tipping point, right? Because, fuck that shit. If it ain't broke, why fix it? Oh, because maybe it would never fucking break in the first place if one paid attention to each time you did it again. Like, hey, I'm seeing more wear and tear. Like, oh, things are depreciating in value, or oh, things are like building towards preventative maintenance. Well, did you know preventative maintenance is only necessary if you keep using it in a fashion that breaks something down? Did you know there are ways to engage with things that don't actually break it down? And there's ways to engage with things that actually improve it. So really, why don't you pay the fucking attention to the way you're engaging with something? Like, I don't know, oh, seems so fucking obvious. Why do I have to fucking say it? Oh, because apparently the things I think are obvious are not obvious to everyone. They're just obvious to some people. That's why some people like jive with me, or some people like, hey, huh. Never really thought of it that way before, but like that makes a lot of sense. Because apparently I have a unique way of putting things together. Apparently, I don't know myself. I'm piecing it together through the memories that have finally shown up in the sense that the nicer ones finally can be heard because somehow I managed to unlock my memories to the point that I don't actually relive them, but I re-experience them, and it turns out like I've got controls of the equalizer now. So it's like a whole computer CG thing. Like I'm watching the whole like diagram, like, hey, this one's still seeing, like I'm turning it this way, I turning it that way. All of a sudden, like the floor plane or whatever is like turned away. I can actually see through it. It turns into like a line diagram of what people I think are trying to do when they're looking at engine parts, except in my mind, without it actually being movable and seeing shading differences when it's just on the piece of paper with a bunch of lines. And like, did you know that line looks like it's in front and then now it's behind and now it's like doing this blur thing. And so now there's this funny little glow around it. And I cannot tell if that's in front or behind. So if I look at like positive and negative space for too long without any defining shades of gray, oh my God, variation. So things that provide depth, if depth is implied and not actually illustrated, I'm just like, did you know this could be like a bunch of different ways? So this line could be right here, right? It could also be like behind those lines. It could also actually be in front here, and because that other line intersects there, it could have like angled off after that, but because it's still going, like, so is that line that intersected, is that in front or is that behind? Or is that like not affecting this? And this line is actually a cross beam that goes actually between these other two that were like this. Or is that part of the angle? So I'm like, oh shit, that's like quantum mechanics or some shit, it turns out, or like quantitative cognition. Like I've already mixed up the terms because I didn't even look up the term quantum until after my ceremony, because I basically got told when describing my ceremony that all of a sudden I'm this mathematical genius. Like, I didn't fucking mention mathematics once. Like, yes, you did. Like, no, I literally did not. They're like, well, what do you think calculus is? Like, how would I know? I never fucking took a calculus class. Same with physics, same with everything. I kept like getting so close to taking a class, or I took one class that everyone's like, well, how did you learn all of that from that class? I was like, well, that class kind of put together all these other things. So, and then I extrapolated from there, and that's why I did this assignment that way. And that teacher loved it. And that teacher didn't like it at all. But the other students, there was a bunch of people that really liked it. So, like the screen printing class I finally did, that teacher actually frequently didn't like my assignments. He actually really liked the positive negative space and certain other ones. Like he would think those hit those points like very well. And then other assignments, he's like, well, you didn't listen. I was like, actually, I did. And you don't know why I did it this way. So, like, several of them had to do with like actual resources. Like at home, I was still living with my parents at the time. I was actually waiting to find, that was the semester I was applying to get into the radiology program. And I didn't understand why I had the response from other students or from the teacher that way. I didn't realize that, and I know this sounds stupid now, but like I didn't realize that the junior college, as we call it, some people call it like community college or whatever. But it turns out like you could do a whole fucking like art major course in there and like I guess get your like associate of arts like actually through the arts instead of um through like bookkeeping or like whatever. The general ed that I consider, because I don't consider that art, because like to me that's like incredibly dry and like academic. Maybe the A should be for academic, like oh, associate of arts, my ass. There's nothing artistic about most of that shit. They're trying once again to box you in by they're like, oh well, this is like general education, like we're proving that you like, well, nobody gets the same thing out of the same class. Even if it's general education, people will take what they can or take what they won't and make their own decisions from it. And so a grade is pretty arbitrary. But at the same time, people decide like, oh, well, it shows that you've got the dedication to see something through. Well, do you know how many people have the dedication? And do you know why their lives devolve when they try and go to school? Oh, yeah, because lives go on outside of school. Because most of us don't actually live on the fucking campus and have everything else taken care of for us so that we can just concentrate on like scholastic studies, right? So like, it's like the thing about well, like I guess in the Japanese terms, like soto deshi versus like uchi deshi. So soto deshi would be like the student that lives outside to like, travel to the school or whatever to receive their training, and the uchi deshi would be like the student that lives at the house or on the property, whatever, on the grounds. Uchi being like house, and really not gonna get into that because that'll take forever. Quantitative expansion in its own right. Already taken way too fucking long, and it's oh shit. Okay, yeah. I don't normally take this long to roll a smoke. This is an experiment, so I'm thinking I'm gonna have to figure out how to label this shit because I now can't even right. Because I was gonna attempt a trial at singing a song by listening to the music through the headphones and just seeing how the sound came out, and that's actually really cool. I didn't fall into that pot of water, but like whatever. Um, so because I was like gonna try and see, because I was gonna see if like if I got up and like kind of danced or something or like whatever moved, and not just do it from a seated, seated, sitting position. If that would change, well, I know it would change something about like my diaphragm and everything else, but moving, obviously, I've learned frees things up. Actually, if you're engaging in one motion, you can actually free up to be like I don't know, potentiated for more for something. I don't know the terms for this yet. This is all intuition. This is all things I'm noticing. This is all because I've learned that skateboarding is a great way to like pull out of like the worst form of a seizure. Well, worst form of my seizures. I don't have following seizures. Not anymore. And even when I did when I was younger, now that I realize what those were, I had the ability to kind of feel like I realized what was kind of realized what was happening. Frequently, nobody was around when it was happening, and I'd all of a sudden just like black out and like fall over. Except I was always in motion when it happened because I'd be like all of a sudden jumping up to like answer the door or like try and go run and get the phone, even though like I knew the phone calls were never for me because I didn't talk to people. Um, but yeah, so I always managed to like put my hand out to like find a wall to like kind of like rest against briefly. And as things came back online, I was like right in the doors in that direction. And that was fucking awesome. That was a demonstration on losing my focus just enough to like think about something. I lost feeling in my fingers and didn't realize the paper was about to slip out of my hand. So I just fucking dumped the contents. So that was an excellent demonstration of something completely different, but that taught me a lot about relative awareness because I checked out of the physical form, which was the whole point, was trying to be physical about something to see what happened when I talked. And then what that is it taught me that that particular time I got focused on the thinking about the words, which was actually the thing I was trying to avoid doing. And now I've lost track of those words, which is actually fine. And right, and now there's seeds in it, and so I guess this is like, what was I just told? Like Vasilika or something is like the Russian form or whatever of not Sleeping Beauty. Cinderella. Yeah. Okay, so like the Russian Cinderella or something. And I guess that's actually one of the stories where Baba Yaga shows up because that was like the whole joke. Cause like right, it's Grandma and Grandpa Baba from my family. Literally, that was their name. But it's from Japan. That means something different, except it doesn't because I found it like means something the in Sri Lanka because right because it also means something in like Russia because it also means something in India because it's like all this stuff right because it also means something in the Middle East means something different everywhere it turns out. And then it means like jokes for days for me for a lot of reasons because of the way it means both grandmother and auntie depending on how you draw the A and when. So it kind of sounded like I was saying like grandma auntie when I would say like grandma baba, or I'd be like saying like grandpa auntie when I would say like grandpa baba, but then it would depend on which language you're taking the baba from, because apparently it's also like kind of like a nuts. I can't even remember why he said it in the Sri Lanka. If it had to do with like a baby, it's an affectionate, a term of endearment though. I just can't remember what at the moment. But that's what he calls his wife. So I thought that was like really sweet. Um, so yeah. So don't even know what I'm doing anymore at this point, but it's kind of funny and it's almost a half hour, so I'm just gonna fucking wrap that shit, scrap everything else, and say like, dude, yeah, we'll just fucking see how this goes. Decide half an hour is a good point, right? Okay, bye.